Just ahead on American Black Journal, how can Detroiters and minorities get more involved in the city's resurgence? I'm going to talk with Dave Bing about concerns over a lack of African-American voices in leadership positions in government and in business. Plus, several local women are being recognized this month as game changers in their careers. We'll get the details. Stay right there. American Black Journal starts now.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. Former Detroit Mayor Dave Bing got a lot of people thinking after his recent remarks at the recent Detroit Policy Conference. Bing expressed his concerns over a lack of African-American voices in leadership positions in Detroit, and he challenged government, business, and media to place more minorities in decision-making roles. Bing said the void has resulted in a lack of opportunities for Detroit businesses and residents, and the growing frustration and anger could lead to a really negative outcome. Today, I'm pleased to continue that conversation with Dave Bing as my guest. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thank you.
So let's go back to what you said at the policy conference. I've heard a lot about it since then. I'm not sure everybody took your meaning the way you intended it.
Yeah, you had to listen to the whole speech, really, to understand it, because the frustration that I was expressing comes from a lot of different areas in the city. Business people, the average resident, people in media positions, people from a business standpoint. It's as well as things are going in certain parts of the city, you'd be surprised how some of our neighborhoods look if you get a chance to go there and see how people have to live. And so there's frustration and there's anger. And, you know, we got so many issues with our school system. So when you start looking at that generation of people and the parents that represent those kids, they're very, very upset, and they should be.
Yeah, and you're not just talking about the question of who is participating in the comeback in downtown and midtown, which is a conversation that's been going on for a while. You're talking about citywide. How does what we're doing, what we're seeing, affect the people who live here?
Yeah, you know, we got that 7.5 mile stretch between downtown and midtown and Corktown that's all doing pretty well. But anybody who drives down, walk down or whatever, and you look at the change in the demographics downtown, you say, is this Detroit?
Is it for me, is what a lot of people are asking, right?
Exactly. So when you look at some of our main corridors, historically, Woodward, if you look at Grand River, if you look at Michigan Avenue, if you look at Gratiot, where so many people travel to get to their communities, it's a nightmare. And so we've got to look at those areas, I think, and start to invest as best we can in those strong corridors.
Yeah. Some people took what you were saying as a shot at Mike Duggan, who replaced you as mayor, that you were saying his administration is not as inclusive as yours was and that he's not doing enough. Is that what you meant?
Absolutely not. I think everybody takes things out of context.
People love to do that.
You know, I'm a supporter of the city of Detroit. Mike is the mayor of the city of Detroit. And for me to hope and wish that they didn't succeed at what they're doing is crazy.
Right.
I mean, I did 4.5 years of my life to the city and worked as hard as I could. So the city and its revival is important to me. I want Mike to take what we started and continue on. So I'm supportive of him and his administration. But that doesn't mean you agree with everything that the administration does. It doesn't mean that you agree with everything that our business community is doing. We got to do more, and we have to be more inclusive.
Do you feel like they're missing opportunities, or that they're just not focused on the things that need to be done?
I think both. So I don't believe, I think we've got a window of 10, 20 years of refurbishing our city. And if the business community is not involved with opportunities in that time frame, I think they've missed the total opportunity. It's not going to come back around
Right.
again. So we see a lot of companies that were not in Detroit that are now coming in Detroit to participate. And what I'm hearing from our black business community in particular is that they're not even getting the opportunities to quote on business. And it's not about city business. I think it's business generally speaking. I don't think the political system in the city of Detroit, they're open as far as I'm concerned, but they're not the ones that are going to make the change for a lot of these companies. It's got to be in the corporate and general business community. That's where the big dollars are.
Yeah, yeah. Talk about some of the things you think government can do, some of the things private business can do to really sort of move the needle on this issue.
Government, from my vantage point, can be more focused. I mean, I don't think we can fix the entire city. So you got to focus on the areas where you can make an impact.
Now, see, so Mike Duggan says every neighborhood has a future. Every time he says that, I shudder because I'm like, because I know what some of these neighborhoods look like. I know what some of the challenges are. He's insistent that he can fix the whole city. You don't think he can?
No, it doesn't have enough money. It's going to take money to fix. And some of the areas, I don't know, are fixable. So we need to be honest with people and say, you know, I've got 8, 10, whatever the number is. These are the areas where we can invest. We've got enough money to invest to make a difference, to make an impact. Citizens have to make a decision whether or not they want to stay in the environment that they're in. We got to give them options, and we got to be very open and honest with them from a government standpoint. From a business perspective, I don't see enough blacks in authoritative positions. You know, in a lot of cases, maybe people say, well, you know, they haven't earned the right. I don't know all the answers. Yeah, right. I don't know all the answers to that. But once again, there are a lot of blacks in some of our major corporations in the city that nobody knows about. And I think in order to give our kids hope, we ask them to go to school, to study hard, to graduate, to get a degree, and then come back and work in the city somewhere. Well, if there are not people in those corporations that those kids can identify with and say, you know, one day, if I do the things the right way, I may be able to get a job like you.
Right.
Because there are a lot of people.
That role modeling.
Exactly. That's
really
so important because these kids don't see that. And so if they don't see it, you know, they lose hope and we lose them.
Right, right. So how do we take those people who are there and not visible and get them to be more visible? I know that you have a mentoring program that is engaging some of those people with young kids in the city, but how do we do it on a bigger scale?
Well, I'm talking to a lot of major corporations right now just about that. We need to probably have a summit of some kind so we can get these black professionals that have done well for themselves so that we can kind of put them and those kids together and let them talk to each other. We've got to do a better job of communicating, let kids know what's available. Because a lot of guys and women are in positions today that, once again, if our kids don't see them and know about it, they say, well, I have no hope to get a job like that, so why should I go out and, you know, get a degree and nobody's going to even give me an interview.
Sure, sure. Chief Craig's reaction to your remarks, he was sort of taken aback by some things you said about, you know, the incidents that could happen in the city that could sort of flash into bigger things. I think you referenced places like Ferguson, Missouri. What did you mean by that?
You know, there wasn't one incident that necessarily started those kind of things in any one of those cities. It was things that it was a long period of time where people were frustrated, unhappy, scared, hopeless, and I don't want that to happen here. For me, it's nothing more than a warning to say if we put our heads in the sand and think that everything's okay because of what's happening downtown, it's going to be okay. No, that's not the way it works, because it only takes one individual to do something to get the ball rolling to something that we don't ever want to see happen in our city. So I don't think Chief Craig really fully understood what I was saying. I mean, he needed to.
You weren't necessarily being critical of his
not at all.
department's relationship with with Detroiters. You're talking about the environment.
Yeah, exactly. It's the environment, exactly.
What about schools? We still don't have a solution, a big solution to the school issue here in Detroit. Some legislation pending in Lansing that would change some of that. What's your thought about what we need to do there?
Well, I said emergency managers haven't worked. I mean, we see that.
No question about that.
And so the school is just getting a larger deficit year after year. We're much better off for the plan that the governor has put on the table, the $715 million. We're much better off by doing that now as opposed to going bankrupt. And it's going to cost the citizens across the state probably $1.5 billion. So that's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. But once that decision is made, then we've got to really have a system of education in the city of Detroit that really focuses on education, not just, I mean, I'm worried about all of the buildings in the city that are in horrible shape. And so many schools are closed down. Those buildings are, I don't think you can rehab those buildings.
They're blighting neighborhoods.
They're going to have to come down, and that's a huge cost for the city. I don't think that's something that the Department of Education is going to accept. So, but it's part of the city, and the mayor and this administration are going to have to deal with that.
The mayor has said that he wants to be measured by one criteria after 4 years, the increase in population. He says we can't do the things that we want to do ultimately if we don't get people to stay here and more people to come. How you spend a lot of time in neighborhoods and with young people and people in Detroit. What is it your sense that people are still in the mode of trying to get out if they can? Are we at a point yet where we're growing?
We're growing in certain sectors. Once again, those sectors where the investment is.
Midtown, sure.
But you've got quite a few really good communities and good neighborhoods where I think meaningful investments ought to be looked at. I think the exodus has slowed down quite a bit. Most of the people who wanted to leave and could leave have left. And so we find ourselves in a city where those people who are still here, they don't have an option.
And they need more. They need more from government and they need more support from business because they, as you point out, they're sort of trapped.
I've got to think what could make a huge difference, and I believe this, is that I want to try to get our young kids to start thinking about how important entrepreneurship is.
Do it yourself.
Yeah, do it yourself. Because, when I had my business, I mean, I had over 1,000 people. 800 of those people were African Americans from the city of Detroit. So I had a responsibility to hire as many people from the neighborhood and from the city as I could. If we continue to push entrepreneurship, even though, you may have a business with 10, 20, 50 people, it's an additive. It's an additive. And so if we get people thinking about entrepreneurship, I believe that's one of the ways that we can help turn this thing around.
Okay. Former Detroit Mayor Dave Bing, thank you for being here on American Black Journal.
Well, thank you, Steve.
Coming up next on American Black Journal, we're going to get the details on a special award for outstanding businesswomen. But first, here's a look at some important moments in Detroit's Black history.
I'm Ken Coleman with a look back at African American life in Detroit. This week in 2000, Motown Records bassist James Jamerson was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In 1992, Keith Washington earned a Soul Train Award for his R&B hit Kissing You.
Tonight's the night we will share. Turn off the lights, come close to me.
And in 1940, the Reverend Horace White, pastor of Plymouth Congregational Church, was appointed to the Detroit Housing Commission. These are significant events this week in Detroit's Black history, taken from the book On This Day, African American Life in Detroit.
March is Women's History Month, and later this month, several local women will be honored for their achievements in a variety of industries and disciplines. The second annual Career Mastered Awards ceremony takes place on March 14th at the Crowne Plaza Hotel in downtown Detroit. In addition to the awards and dinner, guests will take part in networking and a business roundtable discussion. Here to tell us more is the event's founder, Dr. Lisa Wicker of Linwick & Associates. She's joined by one of this year's honorees, Tonya Alan, the founder of Forever Fresh. Josh and Florine Mark, President and CEO of the Weight Watchers Group and a roundtable participant. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Dr. Wicker, tell me how you came up with this idea.
Well, because I believe in women and I have a passion for ensuring that we work together to support and lift one another, the vision came that we should honor those women that really have a compelling mark on business and that are doing great things to show that they have mastered the art of their careers. And so I thought about the Detroit market because it is a market with great talent. That last year we began to have the ceremony to recognize these women during Women's History Month in its 35th year.
Yeah. So how are you choosing the women who you're honoring? What are the criteria here?
Absolutely. Women who are iconic, who are known for what they do, women that have presence and power, and those that have actually demonstrated career success.
Yeah. So speaking of which, Florine Mark, last year you were one of the honorees.
I think I was the first.
The first.
Yeah, the first.
And,
And,
Very honored to be there.
you were a Living Legend
yes,
award?
absolutely, absolutely.
And going to be living legend for the next 60 years.
Of course, of course. Talk to me about your career.
Well, you
here
know,
in
I
Southeast
have
Michigan.
7 children. I had five kids that I gave birth to. My husband died when I was in my 30s. I was a grandmother and I was a widow at the same time. And I started my business in my 20s. I needed to go to work. My husband had lost his business, and so I had to go out and help him support 5 kids. I was very overweight, found Weight Watchers, and the rest is history. But when I started, I think I was one of the first women that really started a business and here in Michigan. And when I started and I went to the bank, and all I wanted was $5,000 to buy this Weight Watchers first franchise, they wouldn't give it to me. They said, your husband will have to sign.
Is that
I
right?
gave him a
What year
business
was that?
plan, 70.
Really?
Beginning 70. And I said, absolutely not. So I went back to the parent company in New York, and I told them, you know, you're going to have to just trust me. I'm going to be your best franchise, your biggest. I'm going to be the best that could ever be, and I want you to take, I'll pay that $5,000 when I can.
Yeah.
And they believed me. You know, if you believe in what you do, then other people will believe you. They believed me. I got the franchise, and then several years later, maybe 10 years later, when I started buying other franchises, because I'm president in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, I took my kids and moved to Mexico and started it there, and parts of Canada. And I went back to borrow more money, and this now we're talking about $1 million or more. No problem.
Right,
Got it like that. Took
time,
me up to
right?
the dining room with these men, gave me the check. I still have a copy of that check, you know. And I thought, we women have come a long way.
Yeah.
We really have.
Yeah.
But it's still very hard, I think, for women.
Yeah.
I think we struggle.
Tonya Alan, talk about those struggles that you face today or don't face, maybe because of people like Florine.
Well, first I have to say that I am also president of the National Association of Women Business Owners. And what Florine talked about, NABO actually helped to make change. In 1988, the HR 5050 law was passed that prohibited what she experienced in the 70s. As you well know from that law, women could not even get a loan unless a male relative co-signed,
Right,
which,
co-sign, right.
you know, so we're so glad that she
It's hard to believe
persevered.
that's just in the 70s.
You're talking
It's
less
not
than
that
30
long
years
ago.
ago.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
That happened. So women like her have actually paved the way for the women and our daughters today. I am an entrepreneur, and I call myself a serial entrepreneur. I started a concept of women's disposable undergarments, Forever Fresh, close to 30 years ago. And back then, and still to a great extent today, people are kind of squeamish about talking about femme hygiene. But when you look at the needs of that undergarment, it truly has a place today. It's used in schools across the country because young girls, as we know, have accidents. And if they're in school and they have one and their parents are at work, what are you going to do? So that product is a great fit for that. Fast forward, now your husband passed. I got a divorce. I've been divorced for some time, and it was very difficult for me to continue, you know, my business. I actually restarted Forever Fresh 3 times. I'm a mother of 4 children. I have 1 granddaughter, and I would not let go of my dream. That culminated into a few years later, I got an opportunity to work to get in a partnership at the airport. And my partners and I, Phil Pierce, did a joint venture with José's Branded Foods, and we operate 10 franchise restaurants at Detroit Metro Airport and 6 retail
You're
stores.
responsible for all that, the new food options that we have out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, with those opportunities, you know, had we not continued to persevere as women and help to change public policy, we wouldn't have these opportunities today.
Right. I imagine that this is what some of the things you'll be talking about on the roundtable.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We actually are going to talk a little bit about the study that the Inform organization has finished to talk about women's leadership and really the ascension or the lack of women at the leadership level in boards as well as the head of organization.
Is that getting better in Southeast Michigan?
No.
It's not.
Absolutely not.
No,
Yeah.
no. The study proves that we've had some
Gone down, gone
It's
bad.
going down, really.
in fact, stagnation as well. And so at the end of the day, we still have work to do, but it's about us lifting one another up. It's about us helping to support one another. The theme this year for Women's History Month is forming a more perfect union. And so when you think about that, how do we do that? How do we do that? And most of my career, it's been male-dominated, automotive, and I've had to go through progressions of having support and mentors. And it's really about us doing those kind of things that would provide an opportunity for someone else. You can't stand in your own sunshine.
Right.
You
You know,
really can't.
I think that when I'm on several boards, both philanthropic, non-for-profit, and profit boards, and the 2 non-for-profit boards that I'm on, the for-profit boards, I'm the only woman, and they expect me to be a token. And you know, when they had me on, they want a little diversity, so they got me on, and I'm
speak for all
supposed to be
women,
quiet.
right? Yeah.
Well, don't be quiet about me. And I speak my voice, and I say things and ask questions. I think it's important that we ask questions. And I mean, acronyms. I go on these different boards. Every board, every company has a different acronym. It's a BSK and LGC, and I don't know what they're talking about. So I raise my hand and I ask.
Right. What
and
is
nobody else asks, but I see the other men saying, "Oh yeah, that's what that means." See? But they're afraid, and so we women have to stand up. We have to ask questions. We have to be vocal. We have to be kind and good. You know, we're not men. We don't pound our like this on our fists on the desk. No, that's true. We manage differently than men manage, and that's very important. And I have, at one time, I had about 6,000 people that worked for me. Maybe 5,000 were women, and many of them were not even college graduates, but they had, in my company, you have to have lost your weight with Weight Watchers. You had to be overweight first, lost your weight, and then come through our training after you've gone through our program. And many of them are absolutely terrific. They never thought they could ever do anything themselves before. But you give people a chance, women and men, but especially women, and they rise to that level.
To talk about the importance of getting this message to girls, young women, before they get to the point where they're trying to do these
It's
things.
really part of this process and the platform. Cass Tech, for example, we invite them to this event, and Wayne State University will be there this year. Young women that are aspiring leaders, to see women like Florine and Tonya, and give some idea of what that looks like. And so it's very important. We have a scholarship this year that we're going to be providing to a young lady who is called the Urban Violinist from Detroit, 13 years old. And that scholarship really is to help further the education and the idea of success.
Talk about the other honorees of this.
Oh, wow. Fabulous, fabulous, remarkable women. I can't begin. So the living legend this year is none other than the Honorable U.S. Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence.
My congressperson.
Yeah.
My friend.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then following in the footsteps of Florine being the living legend, we have Tonya Alan as, of course, Jeanette Abraham, who owns the logistics company GMA, Tina Hartman, who owns Tina Hartman Group, Carla Walker Miller Walker, who owns Energy Company. I could go on and on. Rashida Taleb, I think. She's being recognized. Fabulous women who have absolutely not only had challenges, but also see the victories of that success.
You know, most of us, I'm sure almost all of us have come from nothing. I was born on Elmhurst and Linwood.
Yeah.
My family
Oh,
was
my
so
goodness.
poor that we lived with 13 family members in one house. We had
Amazing.
nothing. My sister got polio when I was 11. We had no insurance. We all went out and worked. And I think all of us women have come, we were hungry.
Absolutely.
You know, and we have grown ourselves. Nobody sat down and handed us
No one
money
will
and said,
give it
here,
to you.
start a
Right.
business.
And it's
Right.
funny
We
you
could
say that. I
we
mean,
could keep going.
I
but
grew-
Of course, we are out of time.
Oh, you're out of time. That's great. That's
Thank
great.
you very much,
It's
and
funny.
congratulations
Thank you.
on the
We're
event.
excited.
I know. We could go all day. Thank you guys for being here, and congratulations. Finally today, we'd like to extend our condolences to the family and friends of Gil Hill, who passed away last week. Hill served 40 years in the Detroit Police Department and became the city's top homicide detective. He later was elected to city council and eventually became council president. Hill made an unsuccessful bid for mayor in 2001, and of course, he gained international fame for his role as the tough-talking Inspector Todd in 3 Beverly Hills Cops movies with Eddie Murphy. Hill was 84 years old. That's our program for today. Thanks for watching. You can get more information about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org, and you can connect with us, as always, on Facebook and on Twitter. Plus, you can hear our program on WDET 1019 FM. We'll see you next time.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.